The applause was warm, the hugs genuine, but the Chancellor's job is looking like the loneliest in Britain, facing an economic picture that is not getting any better and under siege from reform.
The single greatest threat to our way of life and to the living standards of working people is the agenda of Nigel Farage and the Reform Party.
There was also a pointed rebuke for critics closer to home, like Andy Burnham and his advice on Labour's direction.
There are still people who peddle the idea that we could just abandon economic responsibility and cast off any constraints on spending. They are wrong. Dangerously so.
The protester on Gaza actually made her look more confident.
We understand your cause and we are recognising a Palestinian state.
As she announced a handful of policies, libraries for primary schools and guaranteed work for young people.
Any young person out of work, education or training for more than 18 months will be given a paid work placement.
But it's this line, almost hidden, warning of a worsening economic picture, that was the most revealing about difficult choices about to hit.
In the months ahead, we will face further tests, with the choices to come made all the harder by harsh global headwinds and the long-term damage done to our country, which is becoming ever clearer.
Before a final attempt at optimism.
A proud Britain, a prosperous Britain, a Labour Britain. Thank you.
It's been a bruising 12 months since Rachel Reeves last stood on this stage promising iron discipline with the country's finances. And with her trickiest budget yet to come, the big unanswered question of this speech is where is she going to find the money?
There will have to be tax rises somewhere, won't there?
Look, we've never shied away from making difficult decisions, but the Chancellor has been consistently clear that working people face a very, very high tax burden.
With power comes the responsibility to take decisions.
And difficult choices.
That's what you have to do.
But where will the Chancellor turn, given she reconfirmed to us her promise not to raise VAT, income tax or national insurance?
We made those commitments in the manifesto. Those manifesto commitments stand.
They stand now. Will they stand in a couple of months at the budget?
Well, they were made for this Parliament.
Business groups say don't look to them to fill the gap.
The burden on business is already at historic highs, so it's really important that any decisions that are taken are really focused on how we make it easier for businesses to invest and grow.
The Chancellor is not short of advice going into the next budget, but constrained by her own promises, her difficult year is not about to get any easier. Romilly Weeks, News at 10 in Liverpool.
And Joel is here to talk about all this. Joel, I mean, there's so much I could ask you. The Chancellor referred to headwinds. Is that a good enough excuse for what's coming, do you think, from her point of view? And once again today, she appeared to rule out those big tax rises. Now, we've talked about this so often. We're talking big numbers. It's hard to get those numbers. What is she going to do? Where is she going to go, in your view?
Well, let's look at where we are. The government's paying more to borrow than was envisaged 6 months ago. It didn't get the welfare savings it was looking for. These things mean that the Chancellor has to find money. The issue, though, Tom, the real headache for the Chancellor is the impending downgrade to productivity growth. Productivity is a measure of what we produce as a nation for every hour worked. It's a key measure. It's been very weak since the financial crisis in 2008, and the government's forecaster, the OBR, doesn't think it's now going to bounce back. This is very bad news because lower productivity means lower wages going forward, lower company profits and lower tax revenues also for the Chancellor. So on Friday this week, the OBR will tell the Treasury how big the downgrade is, how much money the Chancellor needs to raise. Could be 10 billion, could be 20 billion, could be 30 billion, potentially vast sums. And I think today the Chancellor was signalling, as you said, that one tax rise looks pretty nailed on when she spoke to Carl.
I do think there's a case for gambling firms paying more. On a personal level, I've never betted in my life on anything, but they make an important contribution to the economy, but they should pay their fair share of taxes, and we'll make sure that that happens.
Higher gambling taxes might raise 2 billion, maybe 3 billion. Where is all the other money coming from, Tom? The Chancellor's been in post for 15 months. She can't be realistically blamed for underperformance of the British economy for 15 years, nor can she be blamed for higher global interest rates or President Trump's trade policies. However, last summer, she did make promises on taxes, not to raise the three big taxes in ways that now really bind her hands tightly. And at the last budget, she set rules on debt and borrowing, but then left very little room for manoeuvre if things went wrong. In a sense, Tom, she took a gamble. It hasn't paid off.
OK, Joel, to be continued, I suspect, tomorrow. But for now, thank you very much indeed. Well, given the looming tough choices that Joel was just talking about there, the Labour government could well be defined by this period. Sir Keir Starmer calls it the second phase of his administration, a phase already beset with seemingly weekly reshuffles and resets. The first of which saw Darren Jones become Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, a new title, no less. He joins me now. Darren, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Many people watching this programme, I think, will be, many of them on very, very tight weekly incomes are going to be really worried. We keep talking about these big figures, £30 billion, and they want to know, OK, well, where am I going to have to pay more? In which taxes? Can they bet the house on what Rachel Reeves appeared to say today, which was definitely no income tax, no VAT, and no employees' national insurance for the length of this Parliament?
Good to be with you, and thanks for having me. Look, I totally understand where viewers at home are, especially on tight incomes, and people are worried about their bills and their ability to have spare cash at the end of each month. The fact of the matter is the budget will be on the 26th of November.
Which is ages away, the latest you could possibly have it, just about.
Well, I presented to Parliament on the 26th of November. It's not being set out at this party conference today, and the reason for that is that we have to go through this process with the official forecaster, the OBR. We don't have the first round of numbers from them until Friday this week, and the Chancellor will then make decisions in the run-up to that budget on the 26th of November. So I can't tell you now what is going to be in or not in the budget at the end of November.
I'm really confused, as will be our viewers, by the messaging, to be candid, of you and your fellow leaders during this Parliament. Sometimes it appears to be, say, those promises stand for now. Sometimes it's, well, no, they stand for this Parliament, as the Chancellor herself said to say. So which is it? Is there a possibility that you could go to those taxes for the money, or is there no possibility at all for this Parliament? It's a very simple question.
Sure, and what I'm telling you is it's ultimately a decision that the Chancellor will make at the budget at the end of November. But the reason we made those promises in the first place is because we understand the importance of the cost of living for families at home, and making people better off is a big part of what we're trying to achieve over these 5 years.
I'm not trying to unfairly grill you on this. I'm just trying to... Was the Chancellor right in what she said today? That's the official position. She is the Chancellor. We can bet the house on that.
The Chancellor is the Chancellor, and the Chancellor will make the decisions for the budget. But all I'm saying to you, and just to be very transparent with your viewers at home about this, is that decisions need to be taken at the budget, not at party conference. This needs to be done in the proper way, and it's done in the proper way off the back of forecasts from the independent economic forecaster.
If she doesn't go to those places for the taxes, where is she going to go for the money?
Well,
she has to go for, it must be something to do with pensions, surely. That's the only other big place that yields big numbers.
Well, pensioners are also on fixed incomes, and they have cost of living crisis as well.
I'm not talking about pensioners themselves, but potentially pension savings, losing the top rate benefit for that's another possibility.
You're asking me still to speculate on a budget that I can't speculate on.
I'm asking you to give our viewers a sense of what's coming. They need to know, surely.
I understand, but the government won't make decisions until the forecasts arrive and the budget comes, which is on the 26th of November. The key point, I think, from this party conference, it's not a budget, it's a party conference, is that we know the cost of living is still the #1 issue for many people at home, and we're absolutely focused on being on their side and making the decisions in the interest of working people.
Well, back here at the party conference, the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has laid into Reform UK, to put it mildly. At a fringe meeting tonight, she described their immigration plans as worse than racist. And her predecessor, Yvette Cooper, earlier dismissed the party as plastic patriots. But it is clear Labour is still shifting its policy direction, today unveiling stricter conditions for migrants hoping to settle here.
In Southend-on-Sea, a group of immigrants from Zimbabwe and Uganda hang on the Home Secretary's every word.
I will be proposing a series of new tests, such as being in work, making national insurance contributions, not taking a penny in benefits, learning English to a high standard.
That draws a smile of disbelief from Stanford, a teacher originally from Zimbabwe who runs a charity supporting refugees here.
In Southend-on-Sea alone, we have over 300 people waiting for English lessons, and the English lessons have got no support from the government.
So there just aren't the facilities for this?
There's no infrastructure to help people have the skills which they want them to have.
But you don't have to go far here to see why Labour's immigration policy is hardening. Reform are leading the polls with their pledge to scrap indefinite leave to remain entirely, a policy the Prime Minister called racist, only for his Home Secretary to shift sharply right.
He wants to simultaneously call those policies racist, while his own Home Secretary comes up with a half-baked version, which hasn't even gone through a review, and let's see if that would even get through the House of Commons.
The British people have always welcomed those who come here, who work hard and who give back. Time spent in this country alone is not enough.
But what is clear is how much more hostile the government is sounding to refugees like Willie, a teacher from Uganda.
I feel sick. I feel sick.
He has watched the protests at Epping's Bell Hotel, where he spent his first months here, with horror, and fears today's speech will give those who hate more legitimacy.
Does the UK feel more hostile now?
My fear is, what if there is a mass uprising, like it happened in some other cities? That's my fear. Actually, when I'm moving around, I try to look for escape routes. What will happen in case there is a riot?
The government insists it's simply trying to regain control of the UK's borders and recognises the contribution that immigrants make. That may be so, but it's far from a challenge to the ground on which reform is camping. Rachel Younger, News at 10, Southend-on-Sea.
And we can talk to Robert, who's been here at the Labour Party conference and is now back at his studio ready for tonight's Peston programme coming up right after this. Robert, I was completely confused today. I mean, Rachel Reeves appeared to say she was going to stick to those pledges for the lifetime of the Parliaments. Darren Jones notably could have confirmed that on this programme, didn't. I'm very confused by that. What do you think Keir Starmer's got to do and say tomorrow?
Well, as you say, your interview with Darren Jones, who is the Prime Minister's enforcer, was really bizarre. The whole point of moving him from Rachel Reeves's team, where he was Chief Secretary, to 10 Downing Street was to bring the Treasury and 10 Downing Street closer together. And as you say, what we saw today was a yawning gap, because Rachel Reeves actually completely explicitly in interviews said no rise in income tax, no rise in national insurance, no rise in corporation tax, no rise in VAT. And I just literally can't get my head round why Darren Jones wouldn't repeat those commitments. And I'm afraid the only explanation is, and this is a sort of bit of rational economics, but it's really bad politics, is that Downing Street is not persuaded that the best way to fill this 30 billion black hole, which I've been telling all our viewers about for some time, in Downing Street, they don't believe that she can rule out putting up those big taxes, even though she's desperate to rule them out. Because the problem is actually, as you yourself pointed out in the interview, raising the money elsewhere is not very easy to do. So, I would say that interview created more uncertainty at a time when this Prime Minister, and I talked to Emily Thornberry, sort of Labour grandee on this programme. You can see the interview after the news, talked to David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister. They want an inspirational speech tomorrow from Keir Starmer. They not only want him to reach out to party members, but they want him to do something that he singularly failed to do since becoming Prime Minister, which is inspire the country. So, big moment for him and a big moment for all of us.